So tell us your name.
I'm Alex.
Alex, wonderful. How long have you been here?
7.5 weeks.
7.5 weeks. And how old are you?
I'm almost about to be 18. I'm
About
17 right now.
Wonderful. Great. So what brought you to WinGate?
Extreme drug abuse, alcohol abuse, not getting on with my parents, being defiant, just not listening to any rules that didn't think that they applied to me. Pretty much everything a parent doesn't want their kid to do, I did.
You did, huh? All right. And do you feel like you've learned what you wanted to learn being here?
I've learned a lot, so yes.
Share with us some of the things that you've learned about Alex.
About myself?
Yeah.
I've learned a lot, like, of the facade that I put up, like, for so many years and, like, stuff so many emotions down that I actually have those emotions and I do care about things. Because I used to use, like, I don't care, like, it doesn't really matter, but, like, I do care. And I learned that I'm not as independent as I wanted to believe. I learned to be grateful for my friends and family, the good friends that I had, and that most of my friends that I did have weren't really friends. I learned just a lot about myself, like how to deal more healthily. Is that a word?
Yeah, more
with,
healthy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with emotions, and how to just like have emotions and not and like deal with things without being on drugs. I guess being sober and
That's an important lesson, isn't it?
yeah, it's a lot harder than when you're so used to doing drugs for so long. It's a lot harder to just like do everything sober than you think it is. But it honestly like saved my life because I realized, I guess it took me out of like the environment I was in and saw everything I was doing wrong and how I like have a choice to do everything, and like how I didn't have to party all the time, and like I didn't have to like just be that defiant to like be happy and like get what I want. And so just taking yourself out of the environment and being out here in like the wilderness, you learn a lot about yourself, but also on like what you were doing wrong and like how you can fix it, and how in the future you can take yourself out of the environment without having to come back to the wilderness, if that makes sense.
Sure it does. Is this your first program you've been in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was in an outpatient rehab program when I was back in Arizona, but I didn't really care, as I said. So, like, I still did drugs just as much or more while I was in that program.
So it took coming
Yeah.
here.
I would have ran, like, have you ever read The Lost Years?
Yes.
I would have been like that girl. I would have ran away from any other program that you, like, residential facility you would have put me in. Like, I would have found a way out. Like, I was very manipulative and very good at getting what I wanted and doing anything in my power to do that. And like here I've had to like lessen my control and like learn how to deal with like things I don't want to deal with, if that makes sense. Like hiking, I hate to hike, but like you got to do it, and like you just have to have a good attitude about it, and more things are mental than you like think that they are.
That's great insight you've gained there.
I would have I definitely would have just not been where I am now if I would have been put in probably any other program.
Great. What kind of advice would you give future people who may come to WinGate?
Take every day as an opportunity, because you're not here for that long, and like it may seem like it's forever, but like you learn things every day, and like just enjoy being here. And like it actually, like, you're gonna miss your family and you're gonna miss home and you're gonna wonder what everything's going on where you're from, but like this is like a great opportunity to get yourself out of the environment, have no stress, like have no triggers, have no like just like constant, I guess stress is the right word for it, but just enjoy every day, learn as much as you can, and like don't future trip. Like I've had a hard time doing that because I just like I'm ready to get back and experience life, but I just say like worry about the present, not the past, not the future, but just the present, on how you can succeed and like how you can make it make the most out of the moment.
Great. That's beautiful advice.
Also, stay clean and brush your hair.
Awesome. Thank you. What challenge have you had since you've been here that's been really hard to overcome, but you've overcome it, and how did you do it?
My hardest challenge being here was solo.
Mm.
Honestly, I spent like 6 days, 5 days by myself. And I always like to be around people. It distracts me from like all the thoughts and like emotions that I have, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like I don't really like to feel like I have emotions at all. So solo was really hard because I had to deal with like my past and like what I'm gonna do in the future and like the present, everything without talking to anyone else and having to just sit with my own thoughts. That was a really hard challenge, but like I overcame it because first of all I knew it wasn't gonna be forever. Second of all, like I learned a lot more about myself than I do like around people because I learned like there's nothing to distract me. It was all me, like dealing with my own issues. Like I couldn't blame anything on anyone else. It was all me. So
Mm.
like I really took a look on like how organized, how like much I like social, like just like things that you wouldn't really take a look at when you're with other people because it's so easy to get caught up in like what's going on around you. But when you have to like completely remove yourself from not even like having any people around you and having to think and do everything on your complete on your own, then it's a really big challenge. But you learn a lot.
Very good.
So yeah,
Sounds like you've gained a lot of insight since you've been here.
I'd say so. I hope.
Yeah,
I hope
yeah,
I have.
definitely. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing a part of your journey with us. We
Thank
wish you
you.
lots of happiness and success.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I
Alex.
appreciate it.